Hello. I'm going to read from I'm going to read a play I wrote. It's called The Contract, and it's about an hour long. I'm going to break this up into short videos, 10 minutes apiece maybe. I'm going to read it right off the computer screen, and there's a reason for that. The reason is because there's two characters in this play. One of them's an author, and he's writing as the play is going on, so that's very much what I'm going to be doing here, is reading. And the other character is a contract killer. And this is a kind of a dark play. I was in a kind of a dark place when I wrote it anyway. Maybe too dark for a general audience. But if you like black comedy, maybe you'll like this. So Arthur is an author, and he's sitting there like I am, and he's about my age, maybe a little younger. Eddie's about the same age. Eddie's the contract killer. Arthur's got a bunch of junk books, dictionaries, bottle of bourbon, gotta have that. And Eddie's always pulling his gun. I don't have a gun. Should have gone out and bought a water pistol or something, but that's my gun. Okay, so that's Eddie's gun. So Arthur's typing, and he's talking to himself. He's reading as he's typing. Lonesome Gun, Chapter 67. Wesley gripped the iron bars of the window, gazing at the town square below. On foot, on horseback, and by wagon they had come. One family, a father, mother, and a small boy, were laying out the... This damn thing is stuck. This isn't the play. This thing is actually stuck. Coffee. What the... There we go. This will give me a little bit better angle to you. Okay. One family, a father, mother, and a small boy, were laying out the contents of a picnic basket upon the blanket on the ground near the gallows. Wesley thought of his own mother, and a tear rolled down his cheek. Okay, at this point, Eddie comes in from behind. He enters the room where Arthur's typing, and he's wearing a black jacket and pants, a narrow black necktie, a fedora hat, a white button-down shirt, and a rumpled suit coat. He reaches into his jacket as he approaches Arthur from behind. As Arthur continues, yet Wesley knew that he must pay for his crime. Justice demanded it, and without justice there could be no mercy, no forgiveness. What time is it? He said. Soon, the deputy answered. It will all be over soon, Wesley. Eddie pulls a revolver from a shoulder holster inside his jacket and holds his gun to the back of Arthur's head, cocks the hammer. Arthur hears the gun cocked and he freezes. And Eddie says, "What's the greatest story that ever happened?" Who are you? What do you want? I'd like to help you in any way I can. Just, please, don't. What's the greatest story that ever happened? I have some money. If you're in some sort of trouble, I'm sure we can... Just tell me the right answer. What's the story? Story? Why, you mean... Stories like the kind you write. You tell me the greatest one of them all. I take it your question regards works of fiction. I am a novelist, and I suppose that's why you came to me. But your question is not fair because... Eddie recocks the hammer. Click. The Great Gatsby. That ain't it. It sounds like you have a sore throat. Maybe you'd like a cough drop. I have some right here in my desk drawer. Stay right where you are. Don't move till we get this all straightened out. I'm going to ask you just one more time. What's the greatest story? Well, I need to know more about you if I'm to recommend a book for you to read. That is why you came here? There's got to be one story that's better than all others. You tell me the best one. The greatest fiction book of all time? Then, how about, oh, I don't know, The Old Man and the Sea, The Member of the Wedding, The Long Goodbye, David Copperfield. Which one? Pick one, any one. They're all great, but there is no one story or novel that we can definitively say is the greatest. So, unless there's something else I can do for you. You mean there's all these stories, only there's no one of them that's the greatest. Is that it? Yes, that's about the size of it. I get it. There is no story that's the greatest. That's the right answer, I hope you'd say, because if there was a greatest story that happened before, I figured you'd be the guy that'd know. But since you don't, that means that all of the stories happened so far ain't the greatest. Yes, that's right. Eddie starts to put his gun away. He's thinking, and he pulls his gun out again. You're wrong. Because if there is no greatest story, that means that the greatest story that ever happened has got to be the one that just happened to me that ain't over yet and it's still happening. And you's the guy that's going to put it down for me. I'm going to say the words and you type them on the machine. Got it? Got it. Only before we can do that, there's this other matter we got to clear up first concerning a contract, an agreement you's made with me. Contract? The contract! Eddie! And Eddie pretends to fire the gun at the back of Arthur's head. He goes, bang! He holsters his gun as Arthur stands. Eddie hugs Arthur, shakes him like a rag doll, and holds him out to look at him. Geez, I come all the way from Florida to see you and you don't even know me. What kind of welcome is that, huh, Artie? What kind of welcome is that? How are things at Sunnyside Retirement Village, Eddie? It's a pretty swanky place, I hear. You know, after that bullet you took in the gut, the doctor said you'd be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of your life. This is a pleasant surprise. I can't tell you how good it is to see you up and around. Yeah, well, I got better. I can't believe it. I can't tell you, Eddie, how good it is to see you up and around. You said that already. Yes, Eddie, I did. And I meant it. You know, I was working on this novel and I was just thinking about you and I didn't even hear the doorbell. I didn't ring the bell on account I figured you was working and I didn't want to disturb you. Well, that's very thoughtful of you, Eddie. Grab a chair, sit down. Have a drink. Bourbon, right? Straight out of the bottle, just the way you like it. You got a nice place here, Artie. I always liked this room. Me too, Eddie. And do you know why? Because it has lots of room. The ceiling goes all the way up to the roof. The first time Sylvie and I walked in here with a real estate agent, it must have been 30 years ago, I looked up there and I saw all this room. Room for thoughts, ideas, characters. A perfect room in which to write my stories. Sylvie saw bedrooms up there for the kids. And we were going to do that, you know, put bedrooms up there for the kids. But the time went by, and as it turned out, we never had any kids, so those beams look strong enough they could hold a floor on top of them. Well, yes, we had a carpenter in here, and he said the same thing, but, you know, as I said, the time went by, huh, Artie? Yeah. Poof, just like that, huh? Poof, just like that. So, what brings you to New Hampshire, Eddie? A little contract, the terms of which you have yet to fulfill. Oh, I will, Eddie. You have my word on it. Look, I'm working on it. I'm just tying up the loose ends, and I'll have it all together for you soon. The whole bundle is promised. Just need a little more time, that's all. Things have been pretty rough around here lately, Eddie. Sylvie died a month ago. I heard. Sylvie was a nice girl. Well, you know, yeah, she was. It's all water under the bridge now. No, Artie, you know it ain't. It ain't never over till it ends. Hmm. Now, about our contract, Eddie. You promised me you was gonna write the greatest story that ever happened and cut me in on it. Only it never happened. You failed to fulfill the contract. Oh, I never said that, Eddie. I said a great story, not the greatest. Hey, remember A Bullet for Bernardo? That was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a good one. Hey, how about that part when I plugged him again and again? Remember, Artie? Hey, I kept on hitting him. Bam, 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 just like that. Till he was nothing but Swiss cheese with the mice eating him. I must have popped him at least 10 times. 13, Eddie. Eddie the Weasel shot Bernardo 13 times because that's your lucky number. Bugged him 13 times, and all the time I only got 6 bullets in the gun. How about that, Artie? Well, that's the beauty of fiction, Eddie. Yeah, you send it to all the publishers and you never hide back, just like all them other ones you wrote about me. Nobody ever bought them and nobody ever read them. I was getting all the contracts and you wasn't. What went wrong, Artie? Oh, it's all going to happen, Eddie. I promise. I've got something big planned for us. As soon as I finish this little western I'm writing. You never wrote no westerns. Well, I thought since you retired, I'd try something different. Westerns are big now, Eddie, and I think Lonesome Gun, that's the title, is going to establish my reputation as a writer and pave the way for our next big Eddie the Weasel adventure. Which is the only reason I'm writing a western. It's really not my genre, but I wanted to give you some time to recuperate from that bullet wound. And now that you're up and around, and Eddie, I can't begin to tell you how good it is to see you up and around, it's time to get you back in the saddle. Back into another Eddie the Weasel adventure. Hey, I've got the strapline already. How's this sound? Yeah, okay. You ready, Eddie? Ready for this? Okay, the strapline, yeah. Eddie the Weasel is back, and he's got 1 bullet left in his gun. What do you think, Eddie? I don't know, Artie. What's anybody gonna care to Eddie the Weasel back when they never cared when he was dead other 5 times? I mean, nobody ever read any of the books, for Christ's sakes. It ain't gonna happen. Eddie the Weasel never swears. Oh, I guess I lost it there for a minute. What? I mean, nobody ever read any of the books, for crying out loud. It ain't gonna happen. Well, sure it will. I know some movie people who are very interested. We'll get that, who's that actor? You know, the guy played a contract killer like you in that movie. I never goes to the movies, Artie. I don't know any of those guys. Well, they know you. Well, anyway, we had some great times together, didn't we, Eddie, huh? A Slug for Sloan, A Love Letter for Leroy, Lead for Louie. Yeah, those were good. But in the first ones, I only got to shoot the guy once. On account of was always a bullet for this guy, and then a slug for that guy. But then, in A Cap for Capelli, you were only supposed to shoot him once, Eddie. A cap for Capelli, not 2 caps for Capelli. I couldn't help myself. I busted that first cap and I figured, I got 5 caps still in the gun, my fingers on the trigger, what the hell. So I plugged him again on account of he murdered that poor sweet girl that worked in the kiddie section of the library and went home to a little dog and never did nothing to hurt nobody. I figured you wouldn't mind so much, and anybody reading the book already, by that time, they forgot all about the title anyways. All the time I was killing him, I was saying to myself, you call me a weasel, huh? You're a weasel, this punk. But that wasn't in the book, though. I was just saying to myself. Why you give me that name, Artie? Why you call me a weasel? Well, it's a part of the character, Eddie. You are a weasel. You're vicious, brutal, the scum of the earth. Why, you'll weasel your way out of anything. That's what makes you so lovable to thousands of readers. I'm telling you, nobody ever read any of the best readers, Eddie. A small but select group of sophisticated readers who can appreciate the subtlety of your character and the literary qualities of our books. The name is a tribute to your resourcefulness. Yet in spite of your weaselness, there's one thing you never do. You never weasel out of any situation involving the welfare of women, children, or animals. I don't let nobody hurt him, never. And I always takes whatever I got's coming. I don't never cry about it. You're true to your code. Yeah, only my code ain't nobody else's code, huh, Artie? Yours and yours alone. Yeah. Oh, good times, huh? Yeah. Oh, and then, after a cap for Capelli, I popped Bernardo 13 times. Well, yes, you did, Eddie, but a bullet for Bernardo was later. A slug for Sloan was the next one after cap for Capelli. I know, I'm just saying. 13 times I popped a guy. You did indeed. You popped him 13 times. I killed a guy in that book more times than any of the others. That was the greatest book of all of them. Might be. Yeah. Good times, huh? Hey, a love letter for Leroy. You remember that one, Artie? I sure do. Hey, I sent it special delivery, right down the guy's throat. You know, Eddie, I'm really not a violent man. Well, that's why you got me. Yes, that's right. Hey, how come I ain't seen the little kitty cat, what's her name, Muffy? Where is she, Artie? I'm afraid Muffy died, Eddie, a week after Sylvie. Oh, that's a sin. A sin, Artie. That Muffy was a nice cat. Hey, I was just like her Uncle Eddie. Hey, remember how she always used to like to sleep in the bed with Sylvie while she was writing all the time, all night long? That Muffy was a nice cat. Why, yes, Eddie. They don't come any better than Muffy. Sylvie loved that cat. Well, yes, she did. And you know what, Eddie? I think Muffy loved her, too. Whatever happened to Muffy, Artie? One night a couple of weeks ago, she ate her cat food, hopped onto the sofa for a nap, and that was it. You mean poof just like that? Poof just like that. Oh, that's a sin, Artie. I don't never like nothing bad to happen to the little animals. Hey, remember what I done to that punk Leroy? He killed that girl that worked in the pet store, and then he killed all the animals in front of them little kids that went in to buy the goldfish. Why, yes, Eddie, we were just talking about that book, A Love Letter for Leroy. I give it to him special delivery, huh, Artie, didn't I? Right down the throat. With all that love inside of him, he didn't hide nobody after that. Pop Bernardo 13 times. Swiss cheese with the little mice eating them. Time goes by, doesn't it, Eddie? Eddie pulls his gun. Not for me, it don't. You still bound to all the terms of the contract. Relax, Eddie. You've worked hard and you've earned it now. Go back to Sunnyside for a while. A little shuffleboard, a little bingo, you'll feel better. Our next book is going to be big, Eddie, really big, with lots of action for which you'll need to get rested. And I assure you it will satisfy all the terms of our contract. Eddie sits on Arthur's desk, half his butt on Arthur's desk, looking down at Arthur. He says, "What you's gonna call it?" Well, let's see. I have a thesaurus right here. Let's see what other synonyms it has for bullet. The greatest story that ever happened. Pardon? That's the name you's gonna call it. Oh, I don't know, Eddie. Well, why not? Well, because there is no greatest story, and I thought we'd agreed on that. You still hasn't heard my story, and it's all true, and I knows on account of I'm the guy it happened to, and it's still happening.
That's the greatest story. And yous ain't gonna weasel out of the contract. Now get with that typewriter and type all the words I tells you.
Arthur gets ready to type, and Eddie dictates. The greatest story that ever happened. Eddie's pacing around the room thinking as he's dictating, and Arthur's typing what Eddie dictates.
Chapter the first. I wakes up one morning and...
One thing, Eddie, the story wants to be told in third person.
What do you mean?
Well, think of yourself telling a story about somebody else. Instead of saying, I woke up one morning, say, he woke up one morning.
You mean the guy ain't me?
Well, he is and he isn't.
Well, if I ain't the guy, and yous ain't the guy, then who is the guy?
Well, he's you, Eddie. Eddie, what are you thinking about?
About something in the story, only we ain't got to that part yet. I looked at this dead guy's driver's license, and yous ain't gonna believe this, but after I popped the guy, I look in his wallet and...
Tell me when we get there. Let's start again at the beginning, Eddie. Just think of it like you're telling a story about somebody else who is Eddie the Weasel. His character requires third-person narrative distance. The author has to keep a distance between himself and the character. Pretend you're some other guy telling the story. And don't tell it like it's happening now, but like it's something that happened. Eddie the Weasel woke up one morning. Like that.
What's this distance yous talking about, Eddie? What are you saying? Yous ain't trying to hurt my feelings or nothing like that, are you?
No, Eddie, I'm speaking metaphorically. It's a literary term.
Oh.
They go back to Eddie dictating and Arthur typing.
Eddie the Weasel woke up one morning and it was raining outside of his window, and that made him mad, and he wanted to kill somebody. Especially there was this one guy that killed this girl. Let's see what you got so far.
No, Eddie, you're on a roll. Keep going. Don't look at the words I'm typing. Just keep on telling the story.
I want to see.
And he walks to the computer and he starts reading what's on the screen. What Arthur has just typed.
Eddie the Weasel woke up one morning and the sun was shining and all of the birds were singing outside of his window. He opened the window and breathed in all of the fresh air, and the world was so beautiful that Eddie didn't feel like killing nobody that day. And he took all of the bullets out of his gun.
He pulls his gun and points it at Arthur.
Them ain't the words I told you.
Go ahead, Eddie. Shoot.
Why, you dirty double-crossing...
Click, click, click. The gun doesn't work. Try to understand, Eddie. You're a fictional character, okay? If I write that there are no bullets in your gun, then there are no bullets in your gun. See, you can't do anything without me writing it first.
Are you sure of that?
Eddie, don't try to bluff me with this. Look, for some time now, I've been concerned about your increasing penchant for brutality. Toward the end of our last book, Lead for Louie, when you had Louie hanging from the meat hook in the slaughterhouse, I don't know, it just seemed like things had gone maybe, well, a little too far.
What do you mean? There was a contract out on the guy. The punk hijacked a truck full of toys that was going to the orphanage. The toys was for the little orphan kids, for crying out loud.
But I wanted the book to show another side of Eddie the Weasel's character. You grew up as an orphan, right? Well, Louie was an orphan too. And I wanted you to talk to him, get him to understand.
I talked to him and then he understood. End of story.
You had him up on that meat hook and you shot him 9 times and you were still shooting. You had to be stopped. Now, I'm not a violent man and, frankly, your behavior sickened me. And so I had the police arrive at the scene to stop you.
But Artie, I was still talking to the guy. The cop shot me in the back.
In the gut, to prevent you from shooting him. The bullet severed a nerve in your spinal column, paralyzing you from the waist down. I worked things out with the DA to keep you out of prison, put you in a wheelchair and sent you to Sunnyside, the most exclusive and expensive fictional rest home in all of Florida, and a very nice place in which to retire. I did that for you, Eddie. I didn't have the heart to kill you, but I could have. I have that power. I'm the author, Eddie. Remember that. Here, I'll show you. And Arthur begins typing and reading as he's typing. Eddie had fired his last shot, and his pathetic failed career was, finally and thankfully, at an end. No more could the thug Eddie impose his will through the use of violence. Oh, he could bluff and bluster in an attempt to instill fear, but his threats were as empty as his gun. Eddie was through, finished, kaput, and Arthur had no intention of ever writing another book about him, had only played along with Eddie in order to be rid of him once and for all. It was a sad, defeated and broken Eddie who turned and shuffled out of Arthur's house that rainy day and returned to Sunnyside Retirement Village, never to be seen or heard from again. You see, Eddie, it's over. Now look, I have work to do, so go back to Florida. Arthur swivels back to the computer and starts typing. Lonesome Gun, Chapter 67, Rewrite. Eddie, sad, defeated, and broken, turns and starts to slowly shuffle away as Arthur continues typing. Wesley gripped the bars of his cell window, gazing out at the scene below, where the scaffolding was being erected. A rueful smile flitted across his craggy face as he remembered how he'd once been known and feared throughout the West as the Lonesome Gun. But now the gun of his life was empty. The Lonesome Gun had fired his last shot. Eddie stops and he pulls out his own gun and looks at it, sadly, and then he brightens. He reaches into his pants pocket, comes up with some bullets, loads them into the gun, turns to face Arthur's back, points the gun at the ceiling, and fires. And that's be enough. We'll break off there. And the next video will continue with Eddie and Arthur and their story. Thank you for watching.